Hey, everybody at Employabilities Foundation. First and foremost, thank you so much, everybody, for attending the Engaging Clients in Human Services session that I put on earlier this year. And so just wanting to, as promised, provide a quick update of what we covered that day, just as more of, I guess, a reinforcement of what we covered. So it won't be a very long video that I'm making here, but at least cover the, I guess, the main points of what I covered on the day when I was in visiting the office. So I actually have the PowerPoint up on a second computer. So if you notice I'm looking off to the side, that's the reason. And so again, of course, that day I was there for, I believe, 3 hours, took time for questions, Q&A, and I think we even did maybe a mini breakout or an open room breakout. So of course, I'm not going to cover anything into that depth whatsoever. I'm just really going to go through a summary of what I covered the day when I was visiting everybody. So first and foremost, I talked about world-class service providers and what they look like. I shared some stories about the likes of Disney and Zappos, and I even talked about Henry DeFons Winkler and shared my experience when I shared the bill with him as a speaker, and saw at the end, whenever people lined up to get a copy of his book, how he proved that he was in the moment with them by starting at the back of the line and shaking everybody's hand and saying, I know that you are not going to get up to the front until later on, and I just want to let you know I'll still be there to say hi and to spend time with you and take whatever amount of time it needs for me to be able to build a strong relationship and interaction with you. And so thank you so much for coming to my talk today and for waiting to come up to sign a book and say hello. And then he made his way to the front of the line. So what was really neat about that is, as a world-class service provider, he showed that it was all about them, and he showed that he understood that the people at the back of the line are just as important as well. So just a great example of how we can change our perspective on providing world-class service by putting the focus on the person in front of us right now. And I also shared stories about how Disney provides world-class service, i.e., if you're looking for something at Disney, a cast member, if they're not with somebody else or working a booth, will take you right there. If they are working a booth, they'll actually get somebody else to take you right there. I mentioned I lost my car in the parking lot and how they were able to help me find it within minutes because they have a process that tells them where people park at certain times in the day. And as long as you know roughly when you parked your car, they can tell you almost exactly where your car is. So just talked about how world-class service providers are proactive and make it about an experience and find ways to deliver those memories worth sharing. So that was world-class service providers. Then I talked about the fact that what it takes to deliver this quality care is the recognition and realization that you are creating a legacy, and that who you are 29 days of the month is obviously going to dictate to people who you are on the 30th day. And even so much so that if you treat people in a negative way, 2 or 3 days a month, even if you treat people very well the rest of the month, you're still probably going to have that legacy of not treating people very well. So I just talked about the idea that we need to recognize that every day when we're serving our clients and we're engaging with our clients, we're creating a legacy. So I want you to know that you're creating a legacy every day. So why not try to create the best legacy you can by making sure every day that you create a positive experience for the clients that you interact with. I also talked about the fact that energy is contagious, and I shared a quote by T. Harv Eker. And if you will excuse me, I'm just going to read the actual quote. It was, "Energy is contagious, darkness dissipates in light. People actually have to work hard to stay dark when light is all around them." And he calls them measles of the mind. So the people that try to poison the well, the people that try to, maybe there's one person out of 20 that tries to bring negativity every day and bring that into the environment and make the environment toxic. So I talked about the fact that if you stay strong and if you're that positive person and there's enough positive people, that one negative, whether it's person or negative light in infrastructure in the organization, won't have as much of a chance as bringing other people down with them. So I talked about the importance, essentially, of sharing a positive energy every day because of what it does to everybody else around you. Then I talked about Rick Hansen and the fact that a lot of people think he was just born inspirational, and it was to try to share the idea that if we feed our mind positive things, and if we surround ourselves with positive people, we can actually become positive even if we weren't born as an inspirational person. And I use the example of Rick because people think that Rick was just born inspirational. So I asked him directly, and he shared with me that no, whenever he first had his accident, every day he, viewed it as kind of a, look at the situation I'm in, why me? And it took him a long time to come out of that. But he shared that, today he feeds himself inspiration every day. He finds a way every day to bring positive into his life, and that's what keeps him positive each day. He shared that when Terry Fox was around, they used to call each other, inspire each other. So, he, I guess, proved the point that, not many people are born inspirational, but it's something you can bring into your life, and it's something you can actually learn and develop. So find ways to be positive every day, and you can actually develop a positive mindset, even if you're not already there. And how does this affect the people that you're engaging with? Well, obviously, the more positive you are when you're engaging with your customers, the more positive the interaction is going to be, and perhaps the outcome is going to be a lot more both positive and results driven than if you're approaching that with a negative mindset. Then I talked about the importance of an hour of power, setting the tone for your day. I shared how we had Jack Canfield, the co-creator of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series on our show. And I asked Jack what was the number one thing that has been most responsible for his success. And he said it's the action of this hour of power that he practices every day. I shared that Jack breaks it up into 20, 20, 20. So 20 minutes of exercising, 20 minutes of meditating, and 20 minutes of learning or reading. And I shared that you don't necessarily have to do what Jack's doing, but a great way to set the tone for your day is to give yourself that first hour rather than jumping into the world of busyness and giving your time away to other people. So I shared that this hour of power is responsible for a lot of my success, a lot of Jack's success. I noticed that the top achievers, that they practice this, where again, the first hour of the day, they give it to themselves rather than the rest of the world. So how can you do this? What could it look like for you? Maybe you spend your hour doing what Jack's doing, meditating, learning, and exercising, but maybe instead you spend it doing something that you love, that just gets you excited each day, like taking pictures or journaling or playing music or spending time with the kids. But the real takeaway is if you want to be positive each day and bring that positivity to your customers, then if you can give yourself the first time of the day, that's a great way to set the tone. Next, I shared the idea that we've actually changed our customer focus over the years. And I said that we first started off as a service focused society, then we shifted to a satisfaction focused society. Finally, I said we got into the innovation, so being innovative in terms of how we focused on taking care of customers. And then I said, now today we've reached a new level, which is what I call the engagement generation of customer experiences, that we create. So I say that now we have to be engaged with our customers. We have to make them part of the experience. We have to make them feel like they're part of the process and that it's not just about us. So I think it's important for us to know that we're in an engagement society. If you think about Facebook, you can have customers that go on there and talk about your interaction with them and share that with the world. They're engaged. So we have to choose to be engaged with those customers as well. I shared that what I've seen when I've studied the world-class customer service providers is that they start with effective leadership, then that's going to result in employee excellence, and employee excellence is going to result in customer engagement, and then finally that's going to result in business results. So in other words, if it starts from the top, then it makes its way through to the employees, then it's going to make its way through the customers, and the end result is if all three of those are strong, you're going to get business results from the three of those. I shared that the number one way to deal with a negative customer situation is using the power of the word empathy. So truly getting yourself behind how the customer feels, putting yourself in their shoes or their perspective, and realizing how you would feel if it happened to you. So just the importance of practicing empathy when you're working with customers. I also talked about how if you're engaging the customers and you're trying to be there with them, then you should practice the 80-20 rule, which states that we should listen 80% of the time and talk 20. So really the takeaway from that is you should be listening more than you are talking when you're interacting with a customer. These are great ways, again, to create engagement with our customers and to create strong relationships with them just by practicing some of these principles. And then I also noted that it's important for you to recognize that you're not really selling a product or a service. You are actually selling an experience, which involves engagement. So again, it just changes your perspective if you realize that you're selling an experience every day when you walk into the office. And and I'm going to talk soon about the steps, because I think that's the crucial part. I talked about the steps that you need to deliver if you want to get a standing ovation from your customers or get that world-class experience created. But just before I get there, I shared that Disney's common purpose, and I realized and feel that it's important for Employabilities to recognize and say, here's what our purpose and common purpose should be. So Disney, I said years ago, theirs was, our business is making people, especially children, happy. That was Walt Disney's purpose while he was still alive. He shared that that was the purpose of Disney. And they've changed it over the years, but they only changed it ever so slightly to say instead, our business is making people happy. So they took it to children because they realized that big people are children too, and that they can make adults and parents happy as well. So Disney knows that their purpose is making people happy. And I shared when I was talking to you, once you know your purpose, it dictates how you make decisions in terms of how you deal with and interact with customers. So as the example, if Disney knows that it's supposed to make people happy, then if somebody came up and said, can you help me? You wouldn't say to that person, if you're one of the cast members at Disney, no, I can't, I'm busy, because that wouldn't make those people happy. It would go against the purpose. So if you know what your purpose is, it allows you to decide your actions when you're working with a customer. So finally, I said I was going to share some steps for how you can get a standing ovation from each of your customers, and I'm going to just essentially jump right in to the meat of the 5, because when I'm doing a video like this, it's not the same as when I'm there interacting with you and getting to ask questions and getting to have a dialogue. So rather than waste any time, because I know how busy you are, I wanted to jump right into the steps. So step number 1 is making it about your customer. And as I mentioned when I was there, sometimes people, I think and feel, they may be misconstrued that these steps are simple and basic, but even if they seem easy to do, or they seem like maybe common sense, you've probably heard the phrase common sense isn't all that common anymore. So they're not, even if they might seem easy to do, they're not necessarily common sense, and it doesn't mean we're practicing them regularly. And even if you are, there's probably ways you can tweak things ever so slightly. But making it about the customer might sound basic on the surface, but what I'm talking about is truly putting yourself in your customer's shoes and making it about them in terms of what they're looking for. So I used some examples when I was talking to the group about, I shared the story about Prince and how I went to see Prince in 1999, and how I thought he was going to make it about himself and just play music that we had never heard because he had severed ties with the music label that he was with. But instead, what Prince did is he played all the songs that we knew and loved, and thereby what he did was he made it about us in the audience as customers, and the end result is I've shared that story with thousands of people. So Prince truly made it about the customer instead of himself. And so how I said you could do that, some examples were, I shared that the most powerful word in the English language, according to Dale Carnegie, is the sound of your own name. So if that's a fact, then you should use your customers' names every now and then. Not too much so it sounds phony, but every now and then in your interaction with them, and that'll strengthen the relationship, and they'll feel like the experience is about them because you're talking directly to and with them. Second, I said that you should practice the platinum rule. So most of us have heard the golden rule, do unto others as we would have them do unto us, roughly. So the platinum rule, I said, is something that's more, I guess, applicable today, which is that people want us to make it about them, how they would like to be served, not how we would like to be served. So as the example, if you're somebody who's talkative and high energy, and you have a client that comes in and they're not very talkative, then they probably want you to serve them in their personality type, which is not very talkative. So if you practice the golden rule, you would try to be very talkative because that's what you'd like them to do for you. So what I'm saying, the platinum rule is figure out what they would like and then actually adjust to them. So that's the platinum rule, and that's how you can truly make the experience about them. And finally, I talked about personality types and how I just mentioned, that you could have a person that's high energy like myself. You could have another customer who's short and to the point. You could have a customer who's really focused on the details, and another customer who's easygoing and strong in relationships. So you might have those 4 personality types or people in your office directly one after another. So to truly make it about your customer would be to adjust each of their personality types to make the experience about them and pleasing to them. So those are just some quick ways you can practice step number 1 to make it about your customer. Step number 2 is to involve your customer in the experience. So I shared that you could practice the 80-20 rule I mentioned. You can listen more than you talk. So if they're doing more of the talking, they're going to feel like it's their experience and they're involved. I said you could be more of a reporter, so you can ask really good questions and let them answer those questions, and that way you're having an open-ended dialogue, and they're going to feel like more like it's their experience. And then finally, making them feel like they can give feedback or share thoughts and insights, and that's going to make the experience feel like it's about them. And so you're involving them in the experience. Step number 3, I shared that what I've noticed is the lifelong learners and leaders that I've interviewed, these top enlightened super achievers, they know how to go all in. So I shared that when I was talking to and spending time with these enlightened super achievers, none of them took phone calls, none of them checked their phones, none of them checked their data devices or checked their laptops or thought about their grocery list, or at least it didn't appear that way while they were with me. So I talked about how the enlightened super achievers remove the distractions of every day and go all in with the person they're sitting in front of right now. And if you do that, you're going to create a strong positive experience and engage your customers. Number 4 I shared was the big one. I said delivering the wow. So the wow was delivering the unexpected, the thing that the customer doesn't even know you're going to deliver, the little moments that make them go wow, and have a memory that they share with other people. If you could create that for a person, it's going to be hard pressed. You're going to be hard pressed to lose that customer and client. So I shared stories like the fact that I had one of my girlfriends years ago. Had a client that was unhappy because it was near Mother's Day and her kids were going to be away during Mother's Day. She'd always asked my girlfriend to go visit her. So after the end of the day of work, when it was on Mother's Day, actually on the day, she got me to pick her up and drive her to the flower shop and bring her, to get those flowers, then bring her to the client's house. She went in and gave the clients flowers and roses just to say, I appreciate you on Mother's Day. She was in the house for quite a while. She came out, she was crying, the customer was crying, the dogs of the customer were, jumping up and licking and excited to see, meet my girlfriend for the first time. And, she came to the car, my girlfriend that is, with 2 bottles of wine and a patch that the lady's husband gave her. And it had to do with him saving a person in the war, saving a person's life. And he got that patch and he gave that to my girlfriend. So I shared what a wow she delivered for this customer and what are the odds she'll ever lose that customer in the future. I shared as well, I worked with a university computer department not that long ago and asked them about creating wows. And one of the customer service providers shared that what he does at the end of cleaning a computer is he wipes the screen, the monitor, and he had clients even call back and say, oh, what are you charging me for the new monitor? Because they'd never had their monitor cleaned. So here all he was doing was spending 30 seconds cleaning the monitor of the computer that was sitting in front of him anyway, and clients even thought he replaced the monitor. When they found out that all he did was clean it, they were super excited that he had taken that extra step. So a little thing that he did created a big wow for the company. And so I shared as well that my mother used to have a mail lady who came by with a dog biscuit every day for my mother's dog. And even when my mother went out of town for 4 days, she left 4 biscuits in the mailbox. And my mother came back and said, you didn't have to leave biscuits. We were gone away. And she said, well, listen, Nancy, just because you went away doesn't mean the dog should have to go without the biscuits. So, what a wow she created for my mother. So there's 3 examples of some wows that cost almost nothing. In case of the computer cost nothing, that you can deliver for a customer that makes them want to come back over and over again and keeps them engaged in the experience. And of course, these might not be and probably wouldn't be the ones that you would deliver at Employeabilities, but I believe that if you sit down as groups or sit down in meetings and talk about little wows you can deliver, I bet you'll find little wows you can deliver with little or no cost that will be big for the customer receiving them. And I also shared that if you want to create a habit, so for example, delivering wows, that you need to do it for at least 21 days because they've said that that's how long it takes to create a habit. So if you can create a habit of delivering wows or any of the things I'm talking about today, if you can do it for 21 days and cement it as a habit, there's going to be a better chance you're going to stick with doing it and you're going to see the results. Finally, the 5th step I shared for getting a standing ovation was to make sure that you're doing all of the stuff I talked about with passion. The top trait of the enlightened super achievers is that they found and they live their passion. So if you can do likewise when you're with a customer, that's going to take it all to the next level. And I shared a story about Mark Sanborn, who wrote The Fred Factor, about a male person that he met and that went above and beyond and delivered major wows. And because he wrote a book, meaning Mark, on how to deliver, the wow and do it with passion, I thought I'd ask him, how can a person get that passion in their life to deliver the wows and deliver these experiential steps with passion? And he said it's about one of 4 things. It's about what you do, so finding the passion for what you do. Employeabilities, maybe it's the fact that you're working with clients and helping them get back on their feet. Why you do it. Maybe it's because you want to have an impact in their lives. How you do it could be the way that you deliver it that may be unique from somebody else, and who you do it for. It could be either for the customers or maybe it's for your family at home or somebody else that you had in your life that struggled with similar experiences. So Mark said you can be passionate if you can make it one of those 4 things, or in a perfect world, all 4 of those things. So it might be just one for you, but maybe it's all 4. You can figure out what you're doing, the passion for what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and who you're doing it for. That's a great way to bring a lot of levels of passion into your life. So those were the 5 steps I talked about in terms of how to get a standing ovation. So what did I cover during the session I brought in? Well, I talked about what world-class customer service provided. You know, as I mentioned at the first, what do these world-class customer service providers do that makes them unique? You know, how can we get and stay inspired? Why is it important to do so? Why is it important to be that positive light in the tunnel? So that positive energy in the office and with your clients as well. And then I talked about, of course, setting the tone for your day with an hour of power. And then finally, the 5 steps of making it about your customer, involving your customer, being in the moment with your customer, delivering the wow, and doing it all with passion as the 5 ways you create a standing ovation for your customer. So thank you everybody so much. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope you enjoyed the presentation from a while back. I hope to get a chance to meet with everybody again and perhaps come in and work with Employeabilities down the road again. But until that time, I hope you all find ways to live every day with passion. And until next time, I'll see you fairly soon.